A Splash of Color on Your Lips. Written by SereneSorrow and read by Lalaspodfics. Summary. The Phoenix Mountain Hunt ends in a proposal instead of a disaster for Wei Wuxian. Author's notes. I actually meant to write this back in April 2021. It took forever. Chapter 1. The Phoenix Mountain Hunt. Trying to ignore Wei Ying's presence at the hunt had been the primary goal in Lan Wangji's mind, but of course Wei Ying made it impossible. The best that Lan Wangji could hope for was to avoid Wei Ying as much as possible and endure his own straying thoughts for as long as he could. He had set off into the woods on his own for the hunt, breathing deeply and evenly of the loamy forest to try and clear his head and center himself. And for a while everything had been fine. He had found the equilibrium that had steadied him for so long now, ever since he had met Wei Ying. Unfortunately, his tentative peace did not last for very long. Only halfway through the hunt, he turned a corner, and at a break in the trees, he caught sight of Wei Ying, lounging, reclining against a tree with his blindfold still snugly tied around his eyes to blind him to his surrounding and anyone who might approach him. Lan Wangji felt the rhythm of his breathing stutter, and he unconsciously licked his lips, and then he was mildly horrified by himself for his reaction. He very nearly shook his head to clear whatever vile, unfair thoughts plagued him, but stilled himself just in time to prevent the absurd display. Instead, he tentatively stepped forward, his footsteps muffled by the soft earth and moist leaves as he approached Wei Ying. Without realizing it, he licked his lips again, moistening them slightly to counter the feeling of his mouth going dry. With his years of training in how to move properly in any given situation, his feet made no sound, even over the leaves and twigs on the ground, nor did his robe swish too harshly against each other. As if to directly contradict his sense of self, there was a noise beneath his feet, a rock getting caught below a twig and making it snap as Lan Wangji's foot pressed it into the dirt. "Is someone there?" Wei Ying asked suddenly in response to the noise, perking up defensively with one hand clenching tightly on his flute. Lan Wangji remained silent, holding himself still thoughtlessly. "Come on! I can't exactly see anyone like this, and I'd hate to be accused of cheating for taking the blindfold off after all my bragging earlier," Wei Ying teased, falling into a more comfortable rhythm. Lan Wangji held his breath, stepping forward again as Wei Ying just leaned back against the tree again, with his head tilted as if listening for someone to reply. The urge to touch what wasn't his, to finally feel Wei Ying with his own hands, welled up into a flood of want within him, an inferno, a whirlwind of impossible desires. The closer he came to Wei Ying, the less rational his thoughts became. No matter how he struggled to hold on to a sense of restraint, by the time he was close enough to see the slight smudge of dirt on Wei Ying's neck, where he perhaps had brushed a hand, there was only one uncontrollable thought in his mind. There was no conscious decision to lean forward, but before he knew it, he was hovering over Wei Ying, and then he was throwing all caution and rationality to the wind and pressing his own lips against Wei Ying's, kissing Wei Ying. Lan Wangji had never kissed anyone before, and the immediate reaction he had shocked him. Fire in his veins, the lust he'd battled with for years, before he even understood just what it was, surging up, the soft sensation of Wei Ying's dry lips against his own, making him want more, and more even than he had already taken. He pressed more deeply as Wei Ying jolted in surprise at the touch, causing their lips to slip awkwardly and their cheeks to brush until Lan Wangji tipped Wei Ying's head back into place with the fingers of one hand. He couldn't help holding onto the side of Wei Ying's jaw and nipping at his lower lip when he heard Wei Ying's breath hitch, when he felt his breath against his own skin. He thought of doing more, of perhaps levering Wei Ying's mouth open with his tongue and dipping inside, before recalling his sense and wrenching himself away from his heart's desire. Lan Wangji meant to step away. He meant to concoct some means of escape, but to his horror, there was clear evidence left behind of his crime against Wei Ying. Lan Wangji stared, mouth agape and a never-before-seen expression on the statue-like Han Guangjun. Unable to breathe at the sight, Wei Ying's mouth, his lips, and the skin around them, even his cheeks were marked. A large swath of light blue streaked across his skin, painting his lips more darkly thanks to the blood flushing his skin a deeper color. The uneven streaks trailed off on one side with a slight dip, while on the other they splayed out more, where he had placed his fingers. In shock, Lan Wangji raised the same hand that had touched Wei Ying's face to his own cheek, but he was unable to feel a difference. He had only his sword that could cast a reflection, but drawing it would make so much noise. There was no way to know if he was as stained as Wei Ying, or if there was any mark at all. Surely there had to be, though. Marks like this only formed based on the impact that the giver would have on the recipient's life. It hadn't even occurred to him that Wei Ying would have felt such an impact from him. Lan Wangji hadn't ever considered that they would exchange marks, but what could he do now? Even if he tried to hide from Wei Ying now, everyone would see the color of Wei Ying's mouth, the color likely on Lan Wangji's face as well. It would be obvious to everyone what had happened, except he hadn't asked Wei Ying for permission. Wei Ying didn't even know it was him. He would never have allowed. While Lan Wangji had been panicking, Wei Wuxian had been catching his breath and sorting out his own reeling thoughts. Enough so that he could now remove his blindfold. He dragged it off over his head in his haste to discover what shy maiden had plucked up the courage to approach him in the woods, to kiss him, and immediately caught sight of Lan Zhan looking thoroughly panicked just a few steps away. "Lan Zhan?" he asked, confused to see his not-quite-friend before him so suddenly. "Did you see—" Wei Wuxian's eyes dropped from panicking gold irises to a bright slash of red across Lan Zhan's mouth. Not just his lips, but his chin, his jaw, and his cheeks. The bright red matched Wei Wuxian's own hair ribbon and the color of underrobes he liked to wear. He blinked, disoriented for a moment as his mind drew the obvious conclusion. That was his color on Lan Wangji. Wei Wuxian's skin had touched Lan Wangji's skin, and left a mark. His face, his mouth, that kiss Wei Wuxian had just experienced. "Lan Zhan?" Wei Wuxian asked faintly, feeling very confused and oddly happy. Did you just kiss me?" "Wei Ying." Lan Zhan swallowed hard, still trembling slightly in panic. Did you mean it?" Wei Wuxian stumbled forward a step, seeing Lan Zhan half raise a hand as if to catch him. "Lan Zhan, your face is red! Painted red!" Wei Wuxian reached out and actually touched Lan Zhan's jaw. Lan Zhan let him. "Is this from me?" Wei Wuxian asked. "Wei Ying," Lan Zhan whined, actually whined, and reached out to grip Wei Wuxian's robe tightly in one fist. "Lan Zhan! Lan Zhan! Lan Zhan! Lan Zhan!" Wei Ying chided, still feeling shaky himself. "You can't just wander around the woods kissing people. What do you think's gonna happen? Don't worry, I won't insist on you taking responsibility." "Wei Ying!" Lan Wangji practically ripped his forehead ribbon off his head and yanked Wei Ying close enough to tie it around his wrist. "Will take responsibility," Lan Wangji insisted, but then hesitated. "Unless Wei Ying does not want." Looking carefully at Wei Ying, still holding his wrist where the white long forehead ribbon was tied, Lan Wangji saw conflicting feelings in his eyes. Lan Zhan, I can't force you to do that. You probably need to marry some important lady and make your sec elders happy." Wei Ying sounded unhappy about that, though. Lan Zhan could tell easily because Wei Ying wasn't even pretending to smile. "Would rather marry Wei Ying," Lan Wangji choked out, beginning to tremble again. "Really?" Wei Ying's lower lip quivered, and he drew in a shaky breath. "Well, in that case, if you really want me—" Before he could finish answering, a shout broke through the forest. "Wei Wuxian! Where the hell have you been? The hunt's already ended! Get back here so we can hear the scores!" Zhang Cheng's voice cut through the moment, and with a crash, he, Ni Huaisong, and Lan Zichen all stumbled through the tangled brushes around the path to find them. The three, who were followed by more than a dozen other people, came to a halt at the sight before them. "Wangji!" Lan Zichen stared at his little brother, noting the splashes of color on his and Wei Wuxian's faces. Though he felt happy for his little brother for finally sharing his feelings with Wei Wuxian, he was shocked that this was the first time their uncovered skin had ever touched. He would have thought for sure that Wei Wuxian would have grabbed his brother's wrist or something similar at one point or another. Yet color only bloomed on the first touch. How startling. Wei Zhang and Lan Wangji? Ni Huaisong covered his entire face with his fan before peeking back out again. What, Wei Wuxian! Jang Cheng roared, even louder than before, making the birds scatter in the air above the treetops. Just what do you think you're doing? What's going on here? Answer me, you lunatic! Wei Wuxian blinked at the crowd of witnesses before taking the only really viable course of action, which was to turn his wrist in Lan Wangji's grasp and grab his wrist before fleeing for his life from the sparking purple cloud of resentment that chased them both down the mountain. Wei Wuxian, you traitor! Ungrateful Shishong! Get back here and speak for each other properly! How dare you act so indecently and in public! Wei Wuxian is here! Can't you for once in your life follow procedure? Zhang Cheng's voice carried back to them as the three disappeared. So, Zhishenge, when's the wedding? Ni Huaisong asked as he finally lowered his fan again.
I'm not sure. Wanji has taken his time with the courting stage, but I'm not sure he'll feel the same about the wedding preparations.
Lan Zishen offered up honestly as they led the rest of their search party back down the mountain in the wake of the fleeing couple. I suppose Wang Zizhang has always been very decisive and certain. He'll probably get through the planning stages easily, though I can't imagine Wei Zhang not drinking at his own wedding. I'm invited, aren't I?
I'm sure you and your brother will be. I can't imagine why not.
Lan Zishen agreed, pleased with the way everything had turned out in the end. Author's notes. So the ending was going to be more like the two of them separately and awkwardly heading back to their families, and everyone seeing them both, and it just being really scandalous. But I had trouble writing the story overall, so instead I just went with whatever sprang to my mind as I went along. Reader's notes. Personally, I really love the ending. It's very cute, and it makes me crack up. So I'm glad the author went with what they were feeling as they were writing. I hope you all enjoyed listening. Please go to archiveofourown.org/works/367-53418 to leave comments and kudos for the original author. Have a great rest of your day.